Happy Halloween, everybody! I'm Ghost Boy, and today I'm talking about the top 5 best Scooby-Doo Halloween specials. None of these specials are in any kind of order, but number 1 is definitely my favorite Scooby-Doo Halloween special, and also my all-time favorite Scooby-Doo movie ever. So sit back, relax, and grab your Scooby snacks, because we're about to solve the mystery of the top 5 best Scooby-Doo Halloween specials in history. Scooby-Doo and the Spooky Scarecrow. 2 teenagers are attacked by a scarecrow in the haunted corn maze, which causes the mayor to cancel all Halloween festivities for the year, unless the gang can stop the spooky scarecrow and solve the mystery before Halloween. This is a 20-minute animated Halloween special, but I really wish it was a full-length movie, because I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't know why exactly, but I've always been obsessed with scarecrows, and I've always associated them with Halloween. And the scarecrow in this special, Cornfield Clem, is no exception. He's pretty cool and creepy. He uses a scythe like most evil scarecrows always use. But what makes this one special is that he has very long, extendable arms, like Slender Man or Mr. Fantastic. This special is also surprisingly funny. It introduces some new characters like this ditzy couple, or this old man who only ever says 2 words anytime anyone's trying to talk to him. He only ever says, yep, or nope. At the end of this movie, we see the gang dressed up in Halloween costumes, and Shaggy is dressed up as the Blue Falcon. And I thought that was really neat. This special is short but sweet, and filled with tricks and treats. Trick or treat, Scooby-Doo. Life for the gang is boring after they take down the mastermind behind many of their greatest villains. But 1 year later, they get attacked by ghostly doppelgangers of themselves. Now it's up to the meddling kids to unmask the latest scoundrel and save Halloween before it's too late. This is one of the newest Scooby-Doo movies, and I was very excited when I heard we were getting another Halloween-themed Scooby-Doo movie. And thankfully, this movie did not disappoint. I really love the retro animation style of this movie. It's very reminiscent of the newer Scooby-Doo TV series, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. This movie also has a shockingly good soundtrack. And that might seem like a weird thing to say, but some of the older Scooby-Doo movies like Zombie Island have badass, super catchy songs. And that's one thing that's been missing in the newer Scooby-Doo films. But after watching this movie, I wanted to find the soundtrack. There's a chase scene and Ballroom Blitz is playing in the background, and I just thought that was awesome, and it fit really well with the movie. We get some really awesome, creative new villains in this film, like evil, ghostly doppelgangers of the Mystery Inc. gang. And I thought that was a very cool and unique concept, and I'm surprised it hasn't already been done before. But as well as those new villains, we also get many appearances by classic Scooby-Doo villains. And the absolute best part about this movie is Velma. More explicitly, the fact that after years and years of waiting, we finally have a canon Scooby-Doo movie that made Velma explicitly gay. People have always either made jokes or theorized that Velma was gay. In the live-action movies, she was originally supposed to be gay, but the studio wouldn't allow it. But you can still tell that she was supposed to be gay, especially in the first film or in deleted scenes. And in the TV series Mystery Incorporated, you can tell that at the very least, she was bisexual. She had a very close relationship with Marcy, and one of the writers on the show later revealed that although she did date Shaggy for a while, she was intended to be a lesbian. But in this movie, there's a new character introduced, Coco Diablo, and Velma is completely head over heels in love with her, constantly making hard eyes or saying she's beautiful, and always talking about how much she likes her. And I am just so happy and touched and thankful that after so many years of waiting, that we finally have a straight-up 100% gay lesbian Velma in a mainstream animated Scooby-Doo movie. It's adorable and honestly inspiring. And of course, in the new adult animated TV series, Velma is gay or bisexual. I do really love that show, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because I don't want people to tell me that I should go die. Also, towards the end of this film, the gang all dress up in the disguises of their famous villains, and I thought that was really cool to see. This movie really has everything. Great animation, a great soundtrack, great villains, great jokes, and a gay Velma. What more could you want from a Scooby-Doo movie? Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Escape from Mystery Manor. When the gang goes on a quest to find out what happened to the original Mystery Incorporated group, they find themselves trapped underground in the dark and decaying Darrow Mansion. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is one of my top 3 favorite Scooby-Doo iterations, and definitely my favorite series out of all the Scooby-Doo TV shows. This series is very well known for being one of the darkest, scariest, more adult versions of Scooby-Doo, and this episode definitely proves that that is 100% true. I'm going to go over the plot of this episode a little bit more real quick. Years ago on Halloween, a family were fighting over a cursed treasure, and then mysteriously, their entire mansion sunk into the ground, and they were all trapped down there until eventually all of them died, except for the youngest child. And now, in present day, the mystery gang gets trapped in that old mansion that's been underground for decades. But what they don't know is, someone is still living there. This whole episode is a parody of the Saw movies. If you don't know, in this specific version of Scooby-Doo, Fred is completely obsessed with building traps. It's all he ever talks about, and he's always reading magazines about building traps. And in this episode, the villain keeps putting the gang in extreme life-or-death traps. And just like in the Saw franchise, he leaves audio recordings giving them clues on how to escape from the traps or die trying. And at one point, Fred and Daphne are chained up at the bottom of a swimming pool that is slowly filling with water. And Daphne is like, if we die, at least we'll be together forever. And then Fred picks up a giant rock to smash the chain so they can escape. But Daphne thinks Fred is gonna bash her in the head with the rock. And she's like, Freddy, no, what are you doing? I said I wanted us to be together forever, but not like this. So at the end of this episode, the gang finds the last surviving member of the family who lived in this mansion. And obviously, after all these years, he is no longer a child. But he's genuinely horrifying. His skin is green, his hair is long and ragged, he has extremely long overgrown fingernails, and he's completely lost his mind. And to make things even darker and more macabre, he talks about how him and his family were stuck underground for decades, and how all of his family members died right in front of him. It's pretty dark and disturbing, not gonna lie. This episode isn't extremely Halloween-y, but the first couple minutes take place on Halloween, and it's the closest thing we ever got to a Mystery Incorporated Halloween special. This is not only one of the scariest, but also one of the best episodes of the whole Mystery Incorporated TV series. If you love Scooby-Doo but want something scary to watch this year, then this episode will definitely fill you with fear. Happy Halloween, Scooby-Doo! After defeating the Scarecrow, the gang saved Halloween for everyone in Crystal Cove. But the nightmare of this mystery isn't over, when an army of evil jack-o'-lanterns come to life and attack everyone in town. Now with help from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and famous scientist Bill Nye, the gang must overcome this nightmare, and defeat the army of mutant pumpkins before they destroy the entire town. This is honestly one of the best Scooby-Doo movies we've gotten in years. It's very original, energetic, and breathes new life into the Scooby-Doo franchise. Plus, in true Scooby-Doo fashion, it has some very strange but awesome guest stars, like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Bill Nye, the science guy, and my personal favorite, Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow, aka the Batman villain from DC Comics. And I was so shocked and surprised to see him as the villain in this movie. He's one of my favorite DC villains, and I never imagined I would see him in a movie with Scooby-Doo. If I'm correct, every Scooby-Doo show and movie has always had the gang live in the town of Coolsville, except for the TV series Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. In that show, they lived in the town of Crystal Cove. And once again, another thing that I was very surprised to see in this movie is that the gang actually lives in Crystal Cove instead of Coolsville. And I thought that was very odd, but really cool that they switched things up from what they normally do. Now, I'm not gonna lie, a very large portion of this movie is just one long chase scene between the mystery gang and the villains trying to catch up with them. I think the writers were probably inspired by films like Fast and the Furious or Mad Max Fury Road. I know it probably sounds boring hearing that so much of this movie is a long chase scene, but it was actually really unique and surprisingly entertaining. After the original Mystery Machine gets destroyed, Bill Nye the Science Guy gives the gang a new van he made himself, and it's super technologically advanced and has lots of cool new features and upgrades. And Daphne rides with Elvira in her car, and of course Elvira drives a hearse. And that leads me to what is probably the greatest part about this whole movie, and that would be Daphne. She is absolutely hilarious in this movie. I don't know what the writers did to her character, but I absolutely love it. She just acts so crazy and random throughout the whole movie. She's completely obsessed with Elvira and basically wants to become her. They even change clothing at one point. I really haven't laughed so hard at a Scooby-Doo movie in years, and this is definitely one of the best iterations of Daphne ever. And besides Jonathan Crane being the villain in this movie, there's also an army of mutant pumpkin monsters, which is very similar to an older Scooby-Doo movie I'll be discussing later on. But overall, this is an awesome, hilarious, very unique new take on the Scooby-Doo franchise. So if you love Scooby-Doo and want to watch something new, then this is definitely the Scooby-Doo movie for you. And now, the #1 best Scooby-Doo Halloween special, and my all-time favorite Scooby-Doo movie is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Scooby-Doo and the gang meet a famous horror writer who invites them to go back to his hometown for the annual Harvest Festival. But while they stay there, they learn that one of his ancestors was a witch who is now haunting the town. I know most people claim that Zombie Island is the best Scooby-Doo movie, and I do love that movie, and I think it's one of the best, but I don't think it's the #1 best Scooby-Doo movie ever. That title belongs to Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, and I'll tell you why. First off, this movie has one of the best celebrity guest stars in Scooby-Doo history. Tim Curry plays one of the main characters in this film. His voice is so gritty and iconic, every single line he delivers so well. You can tell just because this is an animated movie, that didn't stop him from putting all of his heart and talent into this role. The movie really wouldn't be the same without him, and I can't express that enough. And as usual with old school Scooby-Doo movies, this one has a great soundtrack, including a cover of the classic Scooby-Doo theme song, sung by Billy Ray Cyrus, which totally fits in with this movie, because the whole film has tons of country, fall, harvest vibes. And speaking of music, that leads me to the best part about this movie. The first ever appearance of the Hex Girls, everybody's favorite eco-goth rock band. Honestly, besides the main characters of Scooby and the gang, the Hex Girls are the best characters in the Scooby-Doo franchise. They're extremely underrated and underused. They really deserve their own spin-off movie or TV show. Their songs are so catchy and memorable, you'll be singing them forever after watching this movie. I've talked about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, a couple different times on my channel, and I always talk about how much I love the opening credits of that movie, because they are absolutely gorgeous and dripping in country autumn atmosphere and Halloween scenery. And that's exactly how this entire film looks. Everywhere you look, there's orange leaves, pumpkins, hayrides, cornfields, costumes, Halloween decorations. This movie is what Halloween and fall look like. Whenever I think about fall, I think about this movie. It's so beautifully animated and drenched in autumn atmosphere and Halloween scenery. Plus, we also get some really cool Halloween-y monsters. The witch uses her powers to bring all of the food from the harvest to life, so there's some awesome giant pumpkin creatures and an enormous turkey. And when the witch's ghost does show up, she's actually surprisingly scary, and this movie has a very dark, ominous ending. But after that grim ending, we get another awesome song by the Hex Girls, along with all of the Mystery Incorporated members wearing Halloween costumes and dancing. This is a classic Scooby-Doo movie. with a scary villain, great characters, great voice acting, beautiful animation, and great songs. Plus, Tim Curry, the Hex Girls, and tons of Halloween vibes and visuals. Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost is the best Scooby-Doo movie I've ever seen, and the best Scooby-Doo special to watch on Halloween. Well, that's the end of my list. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you check out some of these spooky Scooby Halloween specials. Until next time, I'm Ghost Boy, and I hope you all have a wickedly wonderful Halloween.